Trump is president again, and I just love the fact that it's just a big slap in the face into the Democrats who basically try to control, who basically want to take away American citizens' rights, especially as far as regarding free speech, and just censor them. Anyway, I'm gonna get into it. I'm gonna get into it now. It's an article in Infowars. Mainstream media becomes unhinged in face of second Trump administration. Um, Establishment media and talking heads fumed on air following Donald Trump's second presidential election and victory on Tuesday night. CBS News anchors claimed the president has no control over the price of groceries and suggested most voters are too dumb to understand the nuances of economics, such as the role of the private Federal Reserve. See what I mean? The mainstream media is now blaming voters. They're not blaming the candidate. It's not Kamala's fault. It's not the Democrats' fault. It's not Biden's fault. It's the voters' fault. They're too dumb. Look at that. Look at that. Making fun of Americans instead of wondering, maybe what did we do wrong? Anyway, ex Biden press secretary Jen Psaki told MSNBC News viewers, ex-owner Elon Musk is a disinformation propagandist who now could have a direct line to the Oval Office. That is not true whatsoever. What it was, he was just like the rest of everyone else, and I would say even people in the UK that like Trump, and I'll guarantee I'll say it, and I'll go as far as to say this: if Trump was able to be a prime minister in the UK, I would vote for him, no doubt about it. Um, they said all this shit about Biden before the first time he became president, and none of that stuff ever happened. Um, Psaki also questioned whether the Democrats should have replaced Joe Biden with Kamala Harris. That wouldn't have mattered anyway. NBC is already questioning if the coup to remove Joe Biden was smart. It was the only thing to do, because I mean, look what happened. And when he had his debate with Trump, it was over. Um, Lester Holt said, "Has the conversation begun yet about Joe Biden about the decision to ask him to step aside?" Former Biden press secretary Jen Psaki said, "It will begin if if this is not Harris if this is not a Harris win." CNN commentator Van Jones nearly cried as he suggested black women and illegals are in danger now that Trump is said to be back in office. Well, the thing is, the reason that there's so many illegals in America is because of Biden, because of Kamala Harris. It was their fault. And by the way, black women are not going to be in danger. If anything, black women came out and voted for Trump. They made it known that they want to vote for Trump. So basically, he's basically the type of person that is spreading disinformation. That's what he's doing. MSNBC's Simone Sanders became upset at Donny douches for suggesting the Democratic Party should move closer to the centre and ditch the far left faction it has embraced in recent years. Yeah, it shouldn't. They need to start being like, okay, what did we do wrong, and start making it about Americans. Instead of being just pro-war, because that's what the Democrats are. That's what the Democrats are. And they're a bunch of warmongers, and that's not what Americans wanted. Mika and Joel Scarborough were joined on MSNBC by Reverend Al Sharpton to blame Hispanic and black men for Harris' devastating election defeat. No, the one who turned their back on black people and minorities was Kamala Harris, was Biden, was the Democrats, and they were the ones that done it. And Al Sharpton. I mean, he's not exactly a credible person to ask about this sort of thing, is he? A CNN panelist became upset with conservative commentator um, Sir Michael Singleton for laying out the economic reasons voters turned out for Trump. He said, "You absolutely killed this panel. on tonight. The race was not even close. And Kamala Harris' total persona was fabricated by MSM. I can tell you honestly, as a person living in the UK, that I feel the world is about to get a whole lot better under Trump. And the thing is, and the funny and the funny thing that he said that, because the thing is, when he went to see the Queen, and I remember the Queen said that of all the bullshit that was said about Trump at the time, she said that that was not the Trump that she got to see face to face, or when he came to visit the Queen. This is what I'm saying. They just make up so much bullshit, so many lies all the time. Joy Reid was visibly upset during MSNBC's election coverage, calling Florida an extremist right-wing fascist state and blaming white women for Harris' loss. There you go, making it about race. There you go. Over on The View, Whoopi Goldberg struggled to cope with Kamala's failed campaign. The View goes into full-on coping mode, claiming Kamala Harris ran a flawless campaign despite being crushed in a landslide victory. She kicked his butt all over the country over the course of those 2 months. How much more could she have done? I don't know. If all she had to do was just say, you know what, we're not going, we're going to do a ceasefire on the war in Gaza. All she had to say to Benjamin Netanyahu was, "We're not going to give you any more weapons." And guess what? She would have had the election, because there was a poll, and I think about between 60 to 80% of Americans said if that's what she ran on, then they would have voted for her. But no, she just chose to ignore them. Um, An angry Joe Behar blamed Fox News and fake news for the Trump win before saying American children should be learning to spot disinformation in nursery school. No, that sort children should not be learning to spot disinformation in nursery school. And by the way, children are more smarter than you think. They know they can spot bullshit. There was a funny clip that Jimmy Dore put up, yeah, and they were asking I think that asked the kids in this nursery, I think, and one of the kids described Kamala in one word, and one kid said liar. That's what I'm saying. Kids are not stupid. They pick up on bullshit, and even the kids even knew that Kamala Harris was full of it. The View just blamed Fox News, Elon Musk, social media, and X for Trump's massive win. They also called for regulating social media to stop disinformation and indoctrination in schools, where kids would be taught as early as nursery school to believe the legacy media. No, that should not happen. And also, there you go, regulating social media, meaning take away, censoring you, and taking away your First Amendment rights. Um, CNN cried on a CNN commentator cried on there about racial bias and sexism following Trump's re-election. The media has learned absolutely nothing. CNN David Axelrod argues that Trump won because Americans are racist and hate women. Well, the thing is, America, the first of all, racism in America has gone down a lot, and second of all, there are American women who are Americans. So basically, you might as well say that American women are racist. You might as well just say that. But no, he worded it saying Americans are racist and hate women. So complete stupid. That did not make any sense. While observing a Pennsylvania election map, CNN's Jake Tapper and John King were shocked to learn Harris failed to outperform Joe Biden's 2020 numbers in a single state. The mainstream media is dead. Literally nothing. Your propaganda doesn't work anymore. Exactly. And they did the propaganda they kept their propaganda, which they'd done the last 4 years, did not work this time. What this was a victory for karma, a victory on pretty much common sense, and pretty much a victory on like freedom of speech, and that the Constitution won't be in danger, because Hillary Clinton and John Kerry made it known that the First Amendment right and the Constitution in itself is a problem, meaning they would love to take that away from you. Um, anyway, the backlash will only grow as Trump's agenda actually begins to be implemented. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, like, congrats, Trump. You definitely deserved it. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.